The NFL 2021 season is just a couple months away. We have OTAs coming up. We got mini camps. The NFL draft was last week. And joining us now on the Boardwalk kind of hotline, the one and only Andy McNamara from Sportsnet. He was with us for the first 12 picks of the NFL draft the other night. And now he's back with us to recap the draft and what is next for these teams. And he's sporting his Browns shirt. If you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, what is it? Browns against all odds. I'm guessing that's what it says.
Browns against the world. That's what it's all about. Okay. That's what it's all about.
Browns against the world. All right.
Yes, that's what it feels like sometimes. Josh, it seemed like just yesterday we were on doing the live draft coverage. Which, by the way, thank you so much for having me on. We love the interaction with the listeners, the viewers, and all that. That was so much fun. And we had so much breaking news. I was only supposed to stay until 10. We kept going 2 more picks.
I know. You hung around a little longer.
It was amazing. We had all the Aaron Rodgers drama going on, potentially, and then that stopped. And boy, that was a fun night.
It was a fun night. But now that the dust is settled, we have things to touch on. So first of all, I was just talking about the Eagles. I want to get to them first. So they just signed Kerryon Johnson. And I think it's very interesting because it seems like Sirianni's taking seriously this whole, we're going to have competition. Now you got Kenneth Gainwell, who I think was a great draft pick.
I liked him.
Okay, Kerryon Johnson, who's a similar player, by the way, but has an injury history. Then you also have Jordan Howard here, Boston Scott, who's a smaller version of Kenneth Gainwell. It seems like the Eagles are really taking this running back situation seriously, which I find very intriguing because if you remember Sirianni in Indianapolis, they basically ran through 3-4 running backs at a time. And then over with the Chargers, they had 2 running backs at a time, whether it was Melvin Ingram or Woodhead or Eckler. So I think it's fair to say the Eagles plan on using multiple running backs this year.
Absolutely. And what that does if we look at it from a fantasy football side of things for a second, Josh, it sucks. Again, we're losing another RB1. Right? We're losing it just like with Jacksonville, who drafted Travis Etienne. Love the player Etienne, but now you have Robinson. Oh, and there's Carlos Hyde. And then, and so now we're just looking at another committee. But even though with the Gainwell draft and Kerryon Johnson, I still, at least to start the year, I still sort of feel that's going to be Sanders' backfield to begin, and then they'll start to go. Like Kerryon Johnson doesn't scare me as much as he did, let's say, last year when the Lions drafted DeAndre Swift. And then that was just botched and just a total committee situation. So I'm not as scared there, but certainly, it looks like it's going to be for real life football. Who's got the hot hand, mix and match, keep people fresh, which I understand. But fantasy wise, that's just another guy off the board. It's no good.
Yeah, definitely for fantasy wise, but it's very interesting for real football wise also because of the fact that, Sirianni seems to be pretty serious about this competition thing. I mean, they drafted multiple defensive linemen in the draft. They're bringing in all these guys. The reports are that the guy that they drafted as a UFA, an undrafted free agent, is Jamie Carroll, the controversial quarterback who was supposed to go to Georgia. Then he opted out of the season. He said it was because of his kid's health, but then it was convenient. He did it right after he found out he had to compete for the job with JT Daniels, but I digress. So, it seems like the Eagles, they are one of these teams that is really walking in, aside from the quarterback position, saying, hey, almost every job is up for grabs, and that kind of competition might breed a better football product for the Eagles on the field.
I think what that does is it says to the Eagles, the players, and really to the fan base as well, no one's being handed anything. This is not the attitude, which for a new regime coming in, you want. You want to say, hey, I don't care what you did or didn't do in the past. We're here now. You're going to have to prove to us you can or cannot do the job. I think that offers a complete level of fairness in principle to everybody there, and it should bring out the very best and give Philly the best chance to field the best football team they can this year. So I really like that standpoint when it's okay, you're going to be accountable and you're going to have to earn it. That seems like Philly football to me, man. And I think for that division that is still, despite changes here and there, still pretty wide open. This is going to be a very interesting year. And I like that mindset from the coaching staff.
Andy McNamara joining us here on Sports Bash Saturday at AndyMC81 on Twitter, Sportsnet NFL analyst, as well as fantasy sports expert, joining us here on the Boardwalk on the Hotline here on 97.3 ESPN. Now, of the teams in the NFC East, whose draft did you like the most? Who was the team that you walked away from saying, you know what, I like them the best? Doesn't have to be the Eagles, by the way. I'll admit it. I thought the Cowboys overall did a good job. I thought Washington had some interesting picks, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the Giants did well for themselves. To me, if you had to push me, I would say it was the Eagles or the Cowboys with the best draft.
I would say the Cowboys. I like the Giants, later picks. The first round pick, I think, was a botch with Kadarius Toney.
It was definitely a reach.
You have the uncreative Jason Garrett as offensive coordinator. This guy's a gimmick wide receiver right now. He's a one-year starter. He's a converted quarterback, has some baggage with him. You needed him to go to a place with an offensive mind creativity-wise, like a San Francisco or a KC or a Green Bay, something like that. So that pick sucked. Now, getting Ojulari in the second round, I had a first-round grade on him. I think that was a heck of a pick.
Yep.
But when we look at who the biggest winner was, I would put it Cowboys first, then the Eagles, because I just think where they got Micah Parsons is just such a great value and immediate impact guy. And it looks like they're really trying to shore up that front seven. So where the cornerbacks are still probably a little bit weaker than you'd want, you can go long, you can go horizontal, you can try to break down that coverage and force those quicker passes from quarterbacks. I love that Parsons pick. So I'll give the Cowboys a slight edge there over. It's certainly the Giants. I just really didn't like, Josh, that first round pick with Toney. I feel that's a waste. You got Kenny Golladay. Shore up that O-line or get a D end, something like that. That's what I would have liked better for them.
Yeah, and I think the other thing with the Cowboys is I thought the pick, they found value with their picks, overall. Their picks all had value. They weren't just, I felt like the Washington, they reached on a couple guys. The Giants, they reached a couple guys. But I felt the Cowboys said, we know what we need. We're just going to go get it. And they did. And you know what? They needed defense. They took it seriously. And now, they didn't really address the offensive line needs, which is still a concern to me. And, poor Dak Prescott coming off of an injury with a $160 million contract. Now, they didn't improve much on the offensive line. But you know what? Maybe the defense holds up. They can run the ball a little bit more. So,
yeah, I think for Dallas, that O-line, not addressing that earlier in the draft or in free agency is concerning.
And curious. And curious.
Yes. Also, what does that mean for Ezekiel Elliott? This has got to be a bounce-back year for him, right? Where he looked banged up a lot of last year, and just the whole Dak Prescott thing just threw the whole season off, right? So what does that mean on the offensive line compared to the additions that they made that we just talked about on defense? You have the weaponry. The bodies are there. That offense can go. Is the O-line going to be good enough? That's what we're going to have to wait and see. But I think when we look at this division overall, and for the Eagles, by the way, I like that Devonta Smith pickup for them. We talked about it on the draft show, Josh, where I don't necessarily like his frame, how thin he is. I think that durability issue is real, and I think that is a concern. But you're getting the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. I think you're going to have enough creativity from the wide receiver IQ on that coaching staff now to be able to put him in the position to succeed. And you give Jalen Hurts a weapon with Travis Fulgham coming back, with Dallas Goedert, with the additions at running back. So I think the Eagles offense, when we see this thing start to get going in camp, I think they're going to be more of an underrated offense. People maybe not paying as much attention as they should because of those additions and because Jalen Hurts is going to come into this knowing, assuming Flacco doesn't beat him out, knowing that he's going to be the guy.
Flacco's not beating him out.
Please don't Flacco.
Don't feed that garbage to the simple-minded out there. Listen, there are people because I don't know if you know this, but Joe Flacco's from South Jersey. So
right.
There
went to Delaware, right?
Yeah, he started at Pittsburgh. Make a long story short, he was a top prospect. He went to Pittsburgh. It didn't work out for him. He had to go to Delaware. It kind of like revitalized his NFL prospect situation. Then he got drafted in the first round. But he's from our area, so there are people who are like, Joe Flacco's going to start as an Eagle. And we're just like, oh, stop. Howie Roseman already came out and said, they want Jalen Hurts to run with this job. So
give him a chance. Give him a chance to prove it. Like Tua in Miami. Give them the tools, the opportunity. Give them the chance to prove they can or cannot do it.
Really quick.
Perfect world.
Really quick. Is Jalen Hurts on your radar for fantasy football perspective?
Absolutely. I loved, and we talked about it last year coming into the draft, how I thought Jalen Hurts as a prospect before he was drafted was super underrated. His arm talent underrated. And don't give me these stats of his completion percentage. Look at the games. Look at the situations he was in. Yeah. Jalen Hurts has underrated arm talent. And then when the Eagles drafted him, I said I was so high on him. If he got in, and I said this on your show multiple times, Josh, I said if he gets in, Carson Wentz might not get his job back. And for a variety of reasons, that happened. I am super high on Jalen Hurts. And I think for fantasy football purposes, now, is he going to be a top 5 guy? No, but with his mobility, I think you could talk me into thinking maybe a 10 to 12 range with the legs. That wouldn't surprise me.
Now, sticking with the quarterbacks, I know that you wrote on Sportsnet that Trevor Lawrence would be your guy, the rookie quarterbacks for fantasy that you would lock in, especially for like dynasty leagues. But outside of fantasy, which quarterback do you think of the quarterbacks who were drafted landed in the best situation?
Now, that's a good question. I think it's a tie. I think it's a tie for the quarterbacks. I think Trey Lance landed in a phenomenal spot with the 49ers because we know what Kyle Shanahan does with quarterbacks. He plays to the strength. Lance ran that type of pro-style offense under center, play action, roll out. The guy ran in 18 touchdowns, but he's also got a heck of an arm. He fits in well. Super raw, though. 318 total passes in all of college. He's going to take some time. But as to be able to be tutored, Kyle Shanahan, that's a great spot. I don't want him starting necessarily this year if possible, but I want him to have the Patrick Mahomes glove on. Have him learn, have him sit, have him get comfortable. The other guy I think is Mac Jones. And Josh, that is the only spot in New England that I would even entertain that would make sense as a first-round pick. Otherwise, he's Andy Dalton, he's Derek Carr. But in that Belichick offense, that Mac Jones skill set, mindset, quick release, high completion percentage, set a college football record last year, that is a great landing spot. I think he's somebody that is going to add, and I'm talking real life here, but now to fantasy, I think he's going to add more value to the players around him fantasy-wise than himself as a fantasy quarterback.
It's definitely going to be interesting because, if Cam Newton actually plays the way he did before he got COVID last year, this year, Mac Jones might have to be sitting around for a while because, when Cam was on last year before he got COVID, he was looking pretty solid as a quarterback, and they were winning some games. And they should have won that Seahawks game, but, things happen.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. What is the Cam Newton factor? Now, you invested a first-round pick in Mac Jones. Best case scenario, I think, for almost any rookie quarterback is to not rush them in, to have them. I think Mac Jones out of this draft class, though, is the most NFL ready. I believe he has the lowest ceiling of any of the starters, any of the QBs taken in that first round, but maybe the highest floor.
Right.
So I think if you need a guy, if Cam Newton comes in and he's shot putting the ball again and he's into the dirt and he's, or after game 1 or 2 gets banged up, which is likely, I feel you can be more confident putting Mac Jones in than any other quarterback not named Trevor Lawrence.
Andy McNamara joining us here on Sports Bash Saturday at AndyMC81 on Twitter, here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, the NFL draft was last week. We are moving forward with the NFL offseason. The NFL never sleeps. Apparently, the Eagles made sure we knew that yesterday by dropping news at 4 o'clock in the afternoon randomly because, that's what the Eagles decide to do. The one draft pick that I think is not getting enough attention of the first-round picks to me, there's 2 of them. I'm going to start with the offensive side of the ball. I think Najee Harris going to the Steelers is massive. Because to me, that sounds like the Steelers are putting their hand up and saying, we are going to get back to running the football. We asked Ben to do too much last year. He can't be The dude's getting old, man. I'm sorry. I don't care what you think of him.
38.
You can't have him throwing the ball 48 times a game. That's ridiculous.
No, it's so true. I still have, Josh, if ever I feel a little down, I just pull up the gif of Ben Roethlisberger crying on the bench when the Browns beat his ass to eliminate him from the playoffs. So that's just a nice little, that gives me the warm feelings inside. But when you look at what that Pittsburgh offense had to do last year, you're absolutely right. They had no running game. Very uncharacteristic. James Conner's gone. So Najee Harris, he has similar patience, not to the same extreme, but similar patience behind the line and ability to, with vision and to find the hole like Le'Veon Bell did in his prime. He can be a power guy. Maybe not the home run hitter type like a Travis Etienne, but he's more sure-handed with the football. So I love it. My question for the Steelers is, did you do enough on that offensive line? We talked about Dallas. That offensive line couldn't do a whole lot. And if you cannot establish the run, then Roethlisberger, who is really limited and becoming so uncharacteristic, a dink and dunk guy because the offensive line was breaking down around him and the running game wasn't existed. So it became very one-dimensional. If the O-line can step up, I think it's good. If not, we might see, I still think a good rookie year from Najee Harris, but maybe more just on his pure force and talent than if you have a good offensive line.
I hear you, man. The other pick I like a lot, and I only like it because of the team he went to. And I'm not saying he would have been a bad player if he went to other teams, but I think that the team he went to, they are going to find a way to maximize him. Paye going to the Colts. Yes. I think that the Colts, the big thing they missed last year was a legitimate pass rush. They were a solid defense, but they never had that guy off the edge that you were afraid of. Now they get that weapon. It's kind of like when they had Dwight Freeney and Mathis and all those guys back in the day. I'm not saying he's going to be a borderline Hall of Famer. I'm not promising you that. But I think he's got the talent and the work ethic to make an impact day one for the Colts defense.
Well, that Colts defense, you said it, was very solid last year, very good. Linebacker was strong. But you're right, not off the edge. The interior was fine. The secondary was good. So when you add a Paye, who, by the way, in this year, there was no Chase Young, Myles Garrett type. There was none of that type of pass rusher where it was like, oh, yeah, that guy for sure. So I think with most of these pass rushers, what we're going to be looking at is probably trying to start them in at a rotation. Is Paye going to be a dominant 15-sack guy as a rookie? I don't think so, but I also don't think he needs to be. You need, even if you don't get the sack numbers, you need to be a disruptor off the edge. You need to be able to hurry the quarterback. You need to be able to smack the quarterback. You need to be able to set the edge to help stop the run. I think Paye can do all of those things with the athletic upside that if it can be fine-tuned, you can maybe turn him into a better pass rusher overall. So I agree. I really like that pick. That was a situation of a best player available that filled the need for the Colts.
Andy, one more before I let you go. Which reunion of college teammates do you like the most at the NFL level?
Great question. I like the Tua Jalen Waddle connection in Miami. And I think it because, and you pointed this out the other week when we were chatting, and I thought it was a great point. The Tua left-handed release. It's a different angle. Now, receivers can overcome that. It's not a be-all, end-all. But when you get a guy, Jalen Waddle, who 5'9", you can put him in the slot and you breathe. You blink, he is gone. You give him a step. He's got great hands. You can put him outside Tua if you want. But for that comfort level for Tua, from that angle, guys who can instantly go, and you can have him zip off, Tua can get him the ball. I think that combo is going to be great real life. I think it's going to give Tua some early confidence as this is his year. We're talking about Jalen Hurts. This is a prove-it year for Tua. They put everything around him, and the Dolphins have a ton of draft capital still, so they can, if they're not happy, move on from Tua next year. So Jalen Waddle, I think, is going to be a nice safety blanket, and in real-life football, I think it's going to look good. And for PPR and dynasty rookie drafts, Jalen Waddle, to me, is my first wide receiver off the board.
He's Andy McNamara at AndyMC81 on Twitter, Sportsnet. Of course, NFL analyst, fantasy sports expert. Also, real quick, we're up there in the Toronto region. Does anybody care as much as I do that Tom Wilson wasn't suspended? Or am I the only one who's like screaming about it?
I was on the air. There was a lot of chatter over what should not be done. Tom Wilson, ultimate heel. Comes up, he flexes like what? You know what? I'll tell you this, Josh. People pay as much money to see a guy they hate get beat up as they see for a hero. Tom Wilson, ultimate heel. He's a villain. He's a jerk. But you know what? Who's stopping him right now?
Well, apparently not the NHL because they're not going to suspend him, but they suspended Shane Gostisbehere 2 games for boarding a guy. I mean, come on.
And the Rangers guys, they find how about the aggressive tweet from the New York Rangers? Remember right after the quote, horrifying peril should be. It was, yeah.
And the Rangers got fined $250,000 for a tweet.
I tweeted out that the Rangers would have been better collectively to go into the commissioner's office and throw Gary Bettman down to the ground, and they would have only been fined $5,000.
Right. And if you took his head and smashed it into the ground too.
Yeah, $5,000. You would have saved yourself a lot of cash if you would have just ragdolled Gary Bettman.
Shane Gostisbehere is going to lose $77,000 for being suspended 2 games for boarding a guy.
Yep.
Tom Wilson assaulted somebody, bragged about it, and he got fined $5,000. But
flexed on it. And then the next game, he fought twice and won both fights.
Right.
Like, that's the ultimate villain. There was no revenge. There was no happy story about getting. The bad guy won.
Yeah, the bad guy won. It's like Avengers Infinity Wars. There you go.
Right? So, oh, man. I love to hate Tom Wilson. He's, yeah. He's growing on me, man.
Andy, always appreciate you jumping on the back and forth. We'll catch up soon, my friend.
Absolutely, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.